Welcome everyone to the 438th meeting of the Penn State University Retirees Association. My name is Chris Hurley. I'm the President-elect and Program Committee Chair. Today is also our annual business meeting where we will be updating the membership and attending to other business. The agenda for today's meeting will be our presenter for today, and then we'll have our Q&A, and then after that, we will go into our business portion of the meeting. Some housekeeping, if you would like to participate by asking a question, you can click on your Q&A button on your computer and type in your question. They'll go into a queue and our presenter will address those questions at the end of the presentation. I also want to remind folks that this program is being recorded and will be available to be viewed on the association website in future days. So now I'd like to give you some information about today's presenter. Erin M. Coe was appointed Director of the Palmer Museum of Art at Penn State in September of 2017 and serves as Associate Clinical Professor in the College of Arts and Architecture. In the past 3.5 years, she has worked on establishing the vision and strategic direction of the Palmer Museum of Art, including its growing collection and exhibition program, and oversees the planning and implementation of the museum's mission and goals. She is at the forefront of the university's initiative to construct a new university art museum at Penn State Arboretum, scheduled to open in 2023. Erin Coe is the former executive director of the Hyde Collection, an accredited art museum and historic house located in the capital region of New York. She led a capital project that included an expansion of and renovations to the museum's 1989 wing. Moreover, she secured a major gift of post-war modern art that resulted in the addition of a new gallery dedicated to the modern and contemporary art that opened in June of 2017. Prior to serving as director, she was the museum's chief curator for 15 years. During her tenure, she curated more than 40 exhibitions, anchored over a dozen publications, contributed to national art periodicals, and juried several regional and national exhibitions. She has lectured widely, including presentations at the DeYoung Museum, Fine Arts Museum of San Francisco, the McMichael Canadian Art Collection, the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum, the College Art Association, Bard Graduate Center for Studies in the Decorative Arts, and the International Fine Art Fair in Palm Beach, Florida. Coe was a curator of the critically acclaimed exhibition Modern Nature, Georgia O'Keeffe and Lake George, organized by the Hyde Collection in association with the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum in 2013. She has co-authored, she is the co-author of Exhibition Catalog, which was honored with the Award of Excellence by the Association of Art Museum Curators. Before stepping down as director of the Hyde in July 2017 to come to Penn State, Erin was honored with a congressional recognition for her 18 years of dedication to cultivating and promoting the arts in the New York's 21st district. Prior to her positions at the Hyde, Erin held positions at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the University Art Museum at the University of Albany, and the Shaker Museum and Library. She has degrees from the University of New Mexico, the University at Albany, State University of New York, and worked on her doctorate in the history of art and architecture at Boston University. Erin's presentation today focuses on the museum's future direction, including plans for the new museum at the Arboretum, what to expect for the Palmer's upcoming 50th anniversary in 2022, as well as an overview of current activities and other priorities. Welcome, Erin, and thank you for joining us today.
Chris, thank you for that very gracious introduction. And I want to thank you, Chris, as well, for inviting me to speak to the Penn State Retirees Association. And I just want to take a moment to acknowledge everybody who has zoomed in for the meeting and my presentation, and to say it's a delight to meet you all virtually. I'm honored to join you today to discuss the Palmer Museum of Art at Penn State. And I'm going to share my screen, Brian. Just let me know that everyone can see it. Okay.
We see it.
I'm going to start the presentation mode.
Okay.
Okay,
You got the two screens again. Yep, there we
we
go.
gotta swap them. Okay, ready?
Yep,
We've got this.
perfect.
Okay, and everyone can hear me okay? I assume, okay. Just so you know, I can't see anyone, so just, Brian, give me any instructions you feel I need.
Okay.
Thank you. So I titled my talk, "The Palmer Reimagined," as the museum is at a critical point in its history. It's in the process of being reimagined as we plan for the new Palmer Museum of Art at the Arboretum, as we approach the museum's 50th anniversary in 2022 and reflect on our past and our present and our future, and as we reimagined our role during the pandemic, when we closed the museum for 10 months and we continue to fulfill our mission by reaching audiences virtually, similar to what we're doing today. We have reopened the museum. I trust most of you know that. We reopened successfully on February 10th after a 10-month closure. We have still building occupancy limits in place. We have a time ticketing system and of course, masking requirements. And here are our hours on my screen for those of you who want to come visit, and the link to our website where you can reserve your free timed ticket. Until the fall semester, we are going to continue with self-guided tours of the museum, of our galleries and special exhibitions, and then we're going to continue our programming as we've been doing online. But by the fall semester, we plan to be back to all in-person programming, tours, events in our building on Curtin Road, which you're seeing in my slide here. Now, if we were meeting in person, I would ask for a raise of hands for all of you who have visited the Palmer Museum, whether recently or in the past. So I can't see that, but I just wanted you to know that I often like to see how many people in the room have been to the museum. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the Palmer Museum, our purpose is to serve the university's land grant mission of teaching, research, and public service. We are an academic art museum, and we serve as an educational resource for our students and faculty and for our community. We are a teaching museum, and we specialize in museum-based learning. So what is that? We actively connect the art collections with disciplines across campus, and we support and facilitate object-based study and learning. We strive at the Palmer to be a collaborative partner that brings faculty and students into the life of the museum through the co-curation of exhibitions and programs that have curricular and research value, that provide learning and engagement opportunities for people of all ages and from all backgrounds. And I'm going to give you an example of this today when I talk about our current exhibitions. Our goal, as you can see on my screen, is to reach every student at Penn State. We want to be a defining piece of a Penn State education. And as outlined in the university's strategic plan, the museum also serves as the preeminent cultural destination for our region. Now, in addition to our Penn State values, we have our Palmer core values that we developed in 2019. And the values I have on my screen here just quickly are relevance. So we want to be, by relevance, we want to be responsive to the ever-changing world that we live in. And certainly we witnessed this during the pandemic. So we're very committed to staying relevant and to being innovative in that space. Integrity, of course, through our commitment to the highest standards of the museum profession, best practices around diversity, equity, and inclusion. Service, we deliver our work in the spirit of service leadership. So we serve the mission, right? We serve the land grant mission through our art collections and programs and exhibitions. We want to create a welcoming space for exploration and discovery for our audiences. And then engagement. We want to create a culture that leads to meaningful experiences for all and has a transformative impact on our audiences. So that all sounds good, doesn't it? But I have to tell you, it's hard to achieve all of these goals in our current facility on Curtin Road without parking, without a bus drop-off for K through 12 school groups and group tours, and without space to exhibit and care for the art collections that Penn State holds in trust for us today and for future generations to come. Now, a little history. When the Art Museum at Penn State was first established in 1972, I know some of you probably remember this. I was just speaking to someone earlier when we got on the Zoom about the original building on Curtin Road. Again, 1972, designed by architects Tafani and Fox. It was very much a functional, kind of no frills building. It had just 3 galleries, and it had no space to store the collection or to present the growing collection. The building was transformed in 1993 with the Charles Moore edition that we all know today, as you see in my slide on the right. It was renamed the Palmer Museum of Art in 1993 in recognition of the leadership gift from our great benefactors, James and Barbara Palmer. Now, at that time in 1993, we had 3,500 works in the collection. Today, guess where we're at? We have 10,260 works of art. So though the collection has increased by 185%, the footprint of this building has not expanded 1 square inch. And as a result, we can only exhibit at this point, probably less than 3% of the permanent collection is on public view. 3%. The size of our collection alone makes the Palmer Museum one of the largest art museums between Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, and we are the largest university art museum in Pennsylvania. I'm going to talk a little bit about our permanent collection with you. The museum is nationally recognized for its high caliber collection of American art that forms the core strength of the museum's holdings. About half of our collection is comprised of American art. And one of our great strengths is 19th century landscape painting, portraiture, still life, and genre painting that you're seeing in my slide here on view in our Snowist galleries on the first floor of the museum. The museum is perhaps best known nationally for its stellar collection of early American realism and modernism. We are especially strong in Ashcan School urban realists like Robert Henry and John Sloan, and Stieglitz Circle modernists like Georgia O'Keeffe, Marston Hartley, John Marin, Arthur Dove, among many others. And you're seeing this part of the collection, which is on view in our Hull gallery on the 2nd floor of the museum. We have a fast growing collection of post-war modern and contemporary art, and only a small portion of this collection is on view in 2 galleries in the museum. And as you can see, contemporary art tends to be rather large, so it takes up a lot of space. So most of this is actually in storage. We have a significant collection of Renaissance and Baroque paintings from the 16th and 17th century. In the Harris Gallery, this is on the 2nd floor of the museum. We have an international collection of ceramics that spans world cultures and centuries, from ancient to modern. We have a fast-growing collection of contemporary studio glass. The museum began actively acquiring studio glass starting in 1999 with the great Dale Chihuly Seaform that you see in my slide on the left. And this started it all. So the Chihuly started it all with studio glass. That was our first piece, and the collection has continued to grow. Here's a view of about 45 to 50 pieces of studio glass that are currently on view in our Tonkin Gallery. We're anticipating even by the end of this year, 100 more pieces of studio glass are going to be entering the collection. And in just in a few years ahead, I'm anticipating an additional 300 pieces of studio glass. So this is a really fast growing area of our collection. And I guess this is my way of telling you that we are bursting at the seams. The building is at maximum capacity, and the time has truly come to build a new university art museum, I would say of and for 21st century audiences. And speaking of audiences, guess what else we have a lot of? Well, pre-pandemic, we have a lot of visitors. We attract, on average, 35,000 visitors a year, and we do this remarkably without parking or without adjacent parking to the building. Around 40% of our visitors are from the center region, 25% are from outside the region and outside the state. About 30% of our visitors are Penn State students, and 5% are K through 12 students. Indeed, Penn State students represent the fastest growing segment of our audience, due in large part to the new student engagement initiatives that is making the museum a social hub, an educational and a participatory space that they want to come and experience. And our new Palmer Museum of Art is being designed specifically to accommodate both this growing collection and this growing audience. Speaking of growing our audiences, I wanted to take a moment to talk about our virtual resources. During the pandemic, we have dramatically increased our online offerings. In fact, before the pandemic, we had very little online content to offer. But during the pandemic, we've been entirely reliant on generating engagement opportunities and reaching audiences through digital content and virtual experiences. And like hundreds and hundreds of other museums in this country, we successfully migrated our programs, including tours, talks, exhibitions, art activities, to the digital realm. And I am so proud of the staff of the Palmer Museum, and especially our student workers who you're seeing in my slide here. These are our graduate assistants and our undergraduate interns who really took the lead in the development of our virtual programs and made it happen. We could not have done it without our students. Our virtual programs have opened up access to the Palmer Museum anytime, anywhere, to visitors from around the world. And it has helped make the museum more accessible in ways that are more inclusive, more equitable, and global. We've received comments from teachers across the country who have utilized our virtual resources for their remote lesson plans. I can't get into too much detail about that with you today, but it's been incredibly heartwarming to see our impact in this virtual realm. Just one other example, online views of virtual tours and art making activities specifically have risen dramatically. And based on analytics from our Palmer YouTube channel, we have had as many online viewers, 33,000 plus, as we typically had visitors in the building, right, in person each year. Now, that said, my final thought on the virtual offerings is that it isn't a substitute for the in-person encounter with an original work of art. Though enriching and engaging, the one-on-one encounter and experience with an original work of art is really where the magic lies. That's why we work so hard to reopen the museum in February and our spring exhibitions. And I'm going to take you through our current exhibitions right now. We have two stellar exhibitions on view right now. One is Field Language, the painting and poetry of Warren and Jane Rohrer. This is a major loan exhibition that examines the art of Warren Rohrer as it evolved in conversation with poet Jane Rohrer, his partner and his wife, for nearly 50 years. It closes on May 30th, and this show is not traveling. So I strongly urge you to come visit before it closes. Both Warren and Jane Rohrer left the rural life of a Mennonite upbringing. Warren in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, Jane in Virginia, to go into the world and to live a modern life. And this is explained in the introductory section of the exhibition. Here's pictures of Jane and Warren. Here they are in the studio. Here's a poem placed by Jane, juxtaposed with a painting by Warren, and then this shaped panel called Two Clouds. Over the course of Warren Rohrer's 4-decade career, from the 1950s into the mid-1990s, he died in 1995, his paintings became larger and more abstract, but his modernist progression remained consistently engaged with tradition. In fact, his abstract paintings evoke the fields of Lancaster County, where his family farmed for 9 generations. And his mark making, the mark making is what we call the strokes that he wielded with his paintbrush, recalls the meticulous and repetitive labor of farming. So you really have to come see these paintings in person to see what I mean. The exhibition features 50 paintings by Warren Rohrer. They're all on loan to us from major public museums to private collections. And it is the first exhibition to fully explore the relationship between his modernist art and Jane's modernist poetry, and then to feature them alongside Amish quilts, as well as examples of Pennsylvania German folk art you see in my slide here, including painted furniture and decorated redware. The exhibition invites us to consider issues of land use, of sustainability of rural communities and cultures, and our own relationship with agricultural landscape. These aesthetic and cultural connections, and indeed collisions, are at the core of this rich interdisciplinary study, which was conceived by Penn State faculty members Christopher Reed and Julia Kasdor from the College of Liberal Arts, who worked with our curator and assistant director, Joyce Robinson. And the exhibition and the accompanying book received significant funding from the university's strategic planned seed grant implementation fund. So this goes back to my earlier slide about our mission and our goals. This is a great example of truly what I call museum-based learning. The presentation of Warren Rohrer's work is extended by the exhibition Mark Makers, The Language of Abstraction. This companion show situates other noteworthy mark makers, including Alma Thomas, whose vibrant and striking painting, Hydrangea Spring Song, you will see on the front wall of the exhibition, alongside works by Mark Toby, Henry Pearson, Norman Lewis, and others who, like Rohrer, drew inspiration from the natural world as they explored abstraction. The featured painting by Alma Thomas that you see here and other loans to this exhibition are made possible by our ongoing partnership with the Philadelphia Museum of Art and made possible with support from the Art Bridges and Terra Foundation Initiative. This is a program that we've been actively involved with for the past 2 years. Now, save the date, because this summer, we're opening an exhibition called Summer Light, American Impressionist Paintings from the collection of Thomas Clark on May 22nd. The paintings are on loan from Tom Clark, who has made a promised gift of his collection of pre-1940 American Impressionist paintings to the Palmer Museum of Art. And this exhibition is the first presentation of works from this major forthcoming gift of 170 paintings. So this is our first opportunity to introduce Tom's collection to you, our audiences, and is organized around the theme of Summer Light, which I think you would all agree we need to bask in right now. Now, the Clark collection is composed of examples from the last great flowering of landscape painting that emerged in the decades following the heyday of the American Impressionist movement. These artists formed a second generation of landscape painters and extended the legacy and the lessons of Impressionism and plein air painting that have endured to this day. And on the right, you're seeing one just magnificent example from Tom's collection, Sunlit Hill from 1910 by the Boston artist George Loftus Noyes. The exhibition brings together about 24 paintings from this very large promised gift, all produced between 1910 and 1940, that explore the spread of Impressionism across the United States. From California to New England, artists rendered the sun-drenched landscape in ways that fostered a summer aesthetic for American tastes. As a result, a number of summer schools and art colonies flourished during this period and were important centers for the spread of American Impressionism. Cape Ann, Massachusetts, for example, was home to the oldest art colony in the country and attracted several artists that are featured in the exhibition. From left to right, Carl Peters, Haley Lieber, and then on the right, Alice Judson. And art colonies is a strength of the Tom Clark collection, as is the representation of women artists from this period. Now, we are getting ready to mark the museum's 50th anniversary in 2022. The Museum of Art, as I explained earlier, first opened its doors in 1972, and we're kicking off a celebration in January with a schedule of year-long programs, community events, and special exhibitions that will reflect on the museum's history, the key figures who inform the growth and evolution of the museum, and the role of the museum's audience and the community in the development of the museum through the years and into the future. Please save the date, May 21st at the Penn Stater, starting at 6 o'clock. Is our gala, and this is going to be the gala of all galas as we celebrate 50 years of having an art museum at Penn State. We're going to have an exciting evening of dinner, dancing, live auction, and the announcement of the Palmer Service Award recipient. So I hope to see you there. Again, mark your calendar for May 21st at the Penn Stater. We're also going to be celebrating our 50th anniversary with a major exhibition. This will open in the fall of 2022, and we are conceiving the exhibition as a celebration of the museum's 50 years by looking at who we are, our past, our present, and future, while taking a broader look at personal and cultural identity through the lens of art. This exhibition will be drawn entirely from our permanent collection, and it's going to prompt visitors to explore how history, place, and community shape our concepts of self and culture, and then how these themes are threaded throughout the museum's own history. So we are organizing the exhibition around these 4 thematic sections that you see on my slide: history, place, community, and future. So speaking of the future, for this section on future, we're going to have sketches and renderings and models for our new museum in the Arboretum. And on that note, I'm going to focus the remainder of my presentation to the new museum project. So first, I'm going to review with you the goals of the project. I'm just going to take a sip of water. I think it's important that we all have a strong understanding of what the goals are for the new museum. Number one, we want to fulfill and expand Penn State's land grant mission, of course, of teaching, research, and public service for the university students and from audiences from our region, across the nation and the world. We want to create a cultural destination that produces an economic impact and helps fuel tourism in State College in the center region. Think about it. The Arboretum is already ranked the top attraction in State College. We are ranked 5th. They draw 150,000 visitors each year. We draw 35,000. And by strategically combining these 2 destinations and building a world-class facility, we anticipate reaching at least 200,000 visitors each year. We're going to increase gallery space from our current 3%. We want to grow this to 7 to 8% of our collection on public view. We want the building to be integrated with the Arboretum. We want the new museum to enhance the overall sense of place of the Arboretum while retaining its own unique identity as an art museum. We want to create architecture that is of our time, but responds to the context of the natural site that is the Arboretum. We want to provide a welcoming and inclusive experience that is accessible to all. We want the architecture to enhance accessibility and to help overcome barriers to participation. We want to increase the visibility and guest experiences for the Palmer and the Arboretum. We want the new museum to be a place for Penn State students, an educational resource, that social and creative hub that I talked about earlier, that expands their skills and enhances their experience at the university. We want to deepen and strengthen this great connection we have with town and gown. We want to make that stronger and better. And of course, stewardship and sustainability are two other key goals of the new museum. It will be designed and constructed in accordance with the highest professional standards of the museum field as we prepare for accreditation. And it will be a high performance building that will, at minimum, attain LEED certification. The museum is being designed by Allied Works and its founder and principal architect, the gentleman you see here, Brad Clofield. Allied Works was selected based on their extensive experience in the design of art and education facilities. They are known for architecture that is inspired by and responsive to place, to nature, and the broader campus community. Specifically, they bring 25 years plus of experience in museum design and research. And I've just listed a couple of their past museum projects on my slide: the Seattle Art Museum, the Clifford Still Museum, and take a look, another Big Ten University Art Museum, that is the University of Michigan Museum of Art in Ann Arbor. Their most recent museum project before the Palmer was the National Veterans Memorial Museum in Columbus, Ohio, that opened in 2018 and is a must-see. Let's take now a high-level view of this project. This is a drone view of the existing site at the Arboretum. The new museum will be located in this open area outlined in red on my slide, adjacent to the H.O. Smith Botanic Gardens, along Bigler Road, and then here's the Katz Building and the parking behind. The entrance plaza for the new museum will be aligned with visitor parking located behind the Katz Building, and will provide a central gateway that will go basically through the museum and into the Botanic Gardens. So the museum is also prioritizing. I'm going to show you another slide now of the plan of the museum, because I want to show you how the museum is prioritizing visitor access and even pedestrian access through this interlocking paths that you see here. It's kind of web of interlocking paths that allow easy access, whether you're parking and walking over, or maybe you're walking from town and you want to take a stroll up the arcing path into the museum. There's lots of ways I think you can see how you can access the museum and access the Arboretum. The museum itself is going to be comprised of two wings, essentially. Here you see the larger of the two wings. This is the Exhibition and Visitor Services wing. And then on this side is the Education and Administration wing. And they're joined by a second-story glass corridor that I'm going to show you in a moment. The building will be 71,000 gross square feet. It will be a low-lying building, a 1 to 2 story building appropriate to the scale of the Arboretum, yet it will be visible from Park, which is over here, to help situate you. The museum, we're going to get into the renderings now. The museum will have a distinct, again, entry plaza that I just pointed out on the plan that is defined by that second-story glass bridge that frames a gateway and connects the Education and the Exhibition wing. At the same time, it allows easy access into the Arboretum, to the H.O. Smith Botanic Garden, and the new Pollinator Garden beyond. Now, the architect Brad Clofield refers to this as the connector concept, but this is sort of the overarching design theme of the new museum. The connector is symbolic of this new partnership between the museum and the Arboretum, both physically and programmatically. It also speaks to the sense of connection that is core to our mission and our values. Both the Palmer Museum and the Arboretum serve as a connector across disciplines. We're a connector across communities, from students to faculty to residents of the center region and beyond. I'm going to show you now a view from further down Bigler Road toward Park. And here you can see the education and administration wing in the foreground. I just want to point out where the offices will be. The first floor will have offices for the Arboretum staff. Right now, their offices are dispersed across campus, and I'm happy to tell you the new building is bringing the Arboretum staff together. Museum staff will be on the mezzanine level of the museum, and the education spaces are in this part of the wing. I'm going to show you another view of the other side of the building. This is a view from the strolling garden showing the event terrace here. Very large event terrace will have adjacent to a large event space. And I think you can see by this image that there really is no back side to the building. It's architecture that is all fronts and no backs, because you can access the museum from this side as well. Here is a view from the Overlook Pavilion that I'm sure you're all familiar with, the Overlook Pavilion. In this rendering, you get a greater sense of the design intent of the building. You can see how the museum will be composed of a series of interlocking pavilions set within the greater flows of the landscape. Each of the pavilions and the entire building will be clad in a palette of regional stone, sandstone, evoking the rich geological history of Pennsylvania. The pavilions collect and define a series of indoor and outdoor courtyards that blur the boundaries between interior and exterior and provide spaces for gathering and contemplation. Within each pavilion will be carefully proportioned galleries that will capture abundant daylight and frame views of nature. And all of these windows and openings have all been kind of strategically designed to capture a view of nature and to get to that goal of integration. The series of interlocking pavilions, so they both contain art and they frame views of nature. They will inspire curiosity, and they'll provide visitors with a sense that you're taking a journey through the museum as if you were meandering or strolling through the Arboretum. Now let's step inside the building. The new museum will have a very large lobby with visitor services and visitor amenities. It opens up to a two-story pavilion that I just mentioned, that, as you can see, is filled with abundant natural light, and then provides views into the galleries. The American galleries will be directly off of the lobby. And then you can see glass upstairs on the second-story bridge, a peek into the ceramics gallery here, and then view of the event terrace and the gardens beyond. Off of the lobby, you will enter the first of 6 galleries devoted to our collection of American art, which, as I mentioned earlier, is a great strength of the Palmer Museum's collection. Here is one of the double height pavilions in the American wing with views up into the ceramic gallery. There's a balcony and you can look down into 20th century American, and then across to this window to a beautiful view of the Arboretum. The gallery sequence is going to be punctuated by these double height pavilions that provides visual connection between and into other galleries and into nature. The 2 American galleries, so we have 2 sets of 3 galleries. The first 3 are devoted to 20th century American, as you see in the slide here. This is one of 3. And between them, between 20th century and 19th century American art, is the Sculpture Lounge. And the Sculpture Lounge is a gallery that's been designed as a place to exhibit works from our 20th century American sculpture collection, but also a place of reflection and repose. And note how the material expression of the sandstone is being brought literally and carried inside the building. And this is a great example of how the design integrates architecture, art, and nature, and brings them together in this harmonious, beautiful balance. So I said, again, the Sculpture Lounge connects the 20th century American to 19th century American. So here is a view from the Sculpture Lounge heading into 19th century American art. And this is the first of 3 galleries devoted to our 19th century American art collection. One of them, again, is the double height pavilion. And here you can look up to European art or look down from European into American, and then notice the view from the window. Let's go upstairs. So on the second level, as I just mentioned, is a gallery devoted to European art. And again, there's a balcony with a view. This is an actual view. We had drone photography done of the Arboretum so that we could frame these views and make sure we were getting just the right view out of these windows. So that is an actual view that you will see when you come visit the new museum. We're going to have a gallery devoted to post-war modern art that you see here. Adjacent to it on the second level will be our gallery devoted to our rich collection of works on paper. We are going to have 2 adjacent galleries devoted to our fast-growing collection of global contemporary art. We will have a gallery, of course, devoted to another fast-growing collection that I mentioned earlier, and that is international studio glass. I'm showing you an empty gallery here because we are now in the process of exhibit design. So we're just now designing the casework for the studio glass and to present that. But I wanted to share this with you because you can see one of the passive screening devices that is a major element or feature of the new museum. These are full floor to ceiling window with this passive screening device that the architect refers to as a lens. And the lens is designed to protect the space from solar heat gain and excess daylight exposure so that we're meeting conservation and sustainability requirements. And each of these screens is being specifically engineered and fabricated to mold or bend the light away from the building, the direct light, while still providing visibility and allowing visitors to see the view, but at the same time allowing natural light to fill the space. 4 education spaces are being incorporated into the new museum, including the object study room, and you see a rendering of it here. This room is designed to accommodate in-depth and close study of original works of art, free from the distancing effects of plexiglass. So here you can get up close with the art. It will allow our staff and faculty to teach with works in the collection, including many of the works that are kept in storage. And then I'm getting to the end here. We're going to have places to linger and reflect. I'm bringing you back to the connector, that 2nd-story glass bridge. The design of the building incorporates these alcoves or spaces to reflect, to relax, take in the beautiful view of the Arboretum. In sum, the building, as you can see, is designed. We have the construction documents in hand. We are in budget. And the Penn State Board of Trustees approved the design and the final cost on May 7th. We're going to break ground on the new building in mid-July, and the new Palmer Museum of Art is expected to open in the fall of 2023. And just to finish out, how can you get involved with the Palmer? I'm assuming many of you watching today are perhaps a friend of the Palmer. I know Chris is, but if you want to become a friend, we'd love to have you. This is our membership program at the museum, and membership comes with many perks. And I like to say members make museums. So we hope you'll consider becoming a friend of the Palmer and supporting us. This is a very important part of our program, and we love our members, and we provide lots of opportunities for you to come to get to know us a little better and get engaged with our exhibitions and programs. Last, I just want to say, stay connected with us. If you want updates on the new museum and our collection, what's going on, all the hip happenings at the Palmer, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and you definitely want to check out the Palmer YouTube channel that I mentioned earlier. And on that note, I just want to say a big thank you for having me today. Thanks again, Chris. And I'm going to pause now and take questions.
Okay, it looks like there's 3 questions that have come in. Can you see them?
Hold on a minute. Hi, Roger. Now that the trustees have approved the project, when do you anticipate breaking ground? So we anticipate mid-July, Roger, breaking ground, and 2 years of construction, followed by 3 months of commissioning the building. So we're hoping for occupancy in the fall of 2023 and hopefully opening sometime that fall. I got a question. What made you say yes to Penn State originally? And how have you found your experience thus far? That's a very nice question. I have to tell you, it's funny, I was out last night with a Penn State, a member of the campaign committee had invited me to meet a couple from Lancaster who are collectors, and they lent 3 paintings to Field Language, the Warren Rohrer exhibition, 3 paintings by Warren Rohrer. And they asked me the same question. I've been here almost 4 years now, I'm coming up on 4 years in August. And I have to tell you, I love Penn State. I love being here. I feel inspired every day to do my job because I work with such great people. The staff are fabulous at the museum. They are so committed to the mission. They get it. They work so hard. And I'm surrounded by people at Penn State who are passionate, who believe in the mission, who want to make an impact, and who want to ultimately make the world a better place. So I have to say, I love being here. I've never been so inspired in any of my positions in my career. And Dr. Barron's vision, I have to tell you, for the new museum, when I interviewed here in 2017, in the spring of 2017, is really what impressed me, that he got it, that he understands the impact of the arts and the role we play, not only in the university, but in the community here. And so I have really enjoyed it. Any surprises? Well, you know, Penn State is a, you know, it was a learning process. There, you know, before, when I was in a standalone museum, you know, I didn't always have to run everything through all these different departments, but I learned quickly, and I understand that, you know, everyone's here to support us. So some of the processes that are here can be time consuming, as many of you may know, but ultimately it's all for the greater good. And it's all, you know, it's all to have impact and to fulfill the mission. So thank you for that question. As retirees, how might we contribute to the efforts? Well, that's another wonderful question. I did share with you my slide on, membership. One way that you can support us is by becoming a friend of the Palmer Museum of Art. I would say that's really your ticket or your passport, if you will, into becoming a part of the Palmer family. And you can contact Amber Krieg to become a member of the museum. And another way is if you're interested in the new museum, we're still fundraising. So we still have galleries to name and other spaces, education spaces to name. If any of you are interested, or you know others who might be interested in supporting the new Palmer Museum of Art, please contact Robin Seymour. And Chris, I'm happy to share that contact information after the meeting so you can share it with the group, or perhaps I'll just post it in the chat. But that would be a wonderful way to stay involved as retirees. Okay, Beverly, we have a wonderful core of volunteer docents. We're about 30 strong there. And in the new museum, we'll need more docents because we're going to have twice as much exhibition space. And so we definitely need docents. And if you're interested in becoming a docent, please contact Brandy Breslin, our museum educator, and I will put her name and email in the chat. Okay, I'm going to keep going, Chris, going through the questions. What does it mean to be an accredited museum? Yeah, so I came from an accredited museum, the Hyde Collection, which has been accredited since like the mid 80s. And so accreditation is very important because it's national recognition by the American Alliance of Museums that we have achieved excellence in best practices for museums. And that's in terms of museum leadership, in terms of our collection and how we care for and present our collections and interpret our collections, excellence in education, excellence across the board, really in all areas. So it is the gold standard. Accredited museums, doors open for you. Grant opportunities that may not have existed before are become more available to you, to an organization. So there are many benefits to being an accredited museum. It's also putting you into a small pool of highly ranked museums in this country. You get invited to other conferences and you get to engage with other museums and leadership. So it's really important that the Palmer has not been accredited, just so you know. One of the reasons I was brought here by then Dean Coroner, Bobby Coroner, was because I've been through accreditation. I know what it takes to get a museum accredited, and we will be there in the new facility. That's what I want to tell you. Not in the current facility. We have too many issues in the current facility. We would not pass, I think, the standards of the accreditation team that will come visit and evaluate us, but we'll be there, I can guarantee you, in the new museum, and we're getting ready and we're getting all the documents in place and we're doing all the work that we need to do to get there. As part of the new museum store, would you consider showcasing Penn State University Press? Absolutely. All of our exhibition catalogs are produced with Penn State University Press. We sell those, as many of you know, but I'm absolutely open to selling more books from Penn State University Press. Absolutely, and I would be happy to do that. Okay, and what will the name of the new museum be? The new museum, I'm happy to tell you, we're keeping the name. It will be Palmer Museum of Art. That decision was made about a year ago by Dr. Barron in recognition of the extraordinary, indeed remarkable philanthropy of James and Barbara Palmer. When Barbara Palmer passed in January of 2019, she bequeathed her entire collection of American art to us. In addition to the value of the art and her prior giving to the museum, and in addition, I should mention a significant contribution from the Palmer Family Foundation, Dr. Barron made the very wise decision to retain the Palmer name in recognition of all that Barbara and James and the family have done. So I'm pleased because, of course, it makes the branding effort a lot easier when you keep the name of the museum, as you can imagine. Will the museum include a small cafe? Another great question. And in fact, I'm getting ready for a meeting on Monday with a donor who's interested in naming the store/cafe space. So yes, we are going to have in the new museum a store that will have a cafe component to it. But what I want you to know, Jennifer, is it's going to be a grab and go type of cafe. So you're not going to have like the barista there, making your cappuccino for you, but you'll be able to get fresh Starbucks coffee. You'll be able to get a healthy meal or snack, but it will be a more of a grab and go type of arrangement. And we will have plenty of tables and chairs where you can have your cup of tea, a muffin or a croissant or something like that, and sit and look out the window and enjoy yourselves with your family and your friends. So we're starting out small. And then, Jennifer, we'll see how this grows, right? And maybe, we'll see how successful this is, and maybe we can make a case for having more of your classic kind of cafe or bistro in the new museum. But we're not quite there yet. But we will have those amenities for our visitors. Absolutely, you need your iced tea, your lemonade, your coffee, to keep you going. And so this was very important to me that we offer these amenities, especially when you combine a visit to the museum with a stroll through the Arboretum, right? You're going to be extending your visit. You might be spending 2 to 3 hours. So you need something to eat. You need to refresh yourself. And so we're very committed to that, to visitor amenities. That is a top priority. Any other questions, Chris?
I just was wondering again, as far as you have the docent, are there any other opportunities for people to volunteer at the museum?
That's a great question. I mean, right now, our primary volunteer opportunity is being a docent. So I think in the future, though, we're looking to expand that, certainly in the new museum. Maybe people who greet visitors, more in a visitor service capacity. We're going to need help with volunteers for our events. But I should also mention, Chris, that we have the Friends Leadership Council, of which your wife, Gail, is a member. And Friends Leadership Council, they're volunteers. They're volunteers, they're friends or members of the museum. They've kind of taken a great interest in the museum, and they're very invested and dedicated to the museum. And they are volunteers. They create the gala. They do a lot of work making that gala possible. And we could not do the gala, Chris, without the Friends Leadership Council. But we need help there too, I would say. I'm sure Gail would agree with me. we need more hands and we need more hearts involved in that endeavor, because putting on a big gala is a tremendous lift. And we're a small staff. Palmer is a very small staff. It's really amazing. I think it is amazing the work we get done and what we accomplish.
Well, Erin, thank you so much for that informative presentation on the past and the present and the future of the Palmer. It certainly is and will continue to be a gem of the university and the community, and we look forward with excitement to the growth. So thank you so much for your presentation. We hope that our membership learned a lot today, and hopefully they'll get involved with the Palmer.
I really hope so. And like I said, I may just stay on and put in the chat the contacts I mentioned. Does that sound good?
Yes, and certainly if you send me any information, we can see that it gets into a link from our association link, and also just provide that information in our newsletter, future newsletters and whatnot. Yeah,
so why don't I do that? I'll email you Brandy Breslin. Again, if anyone's interested in becoming a docent, Chris, they're mostly retirees. And many of them are Penn State retirees, as you probably know. So I'll send you Brandy's contact information, and then Robin Seymour, anyone who's interested in giving to the new museum. We would be so grateful for any gifts of any size to support this endeavor. And of course, becoming a Friends member, as you know, is such a huge impact on the museum and really brings you into the life of the museum, and makes you part of everything that's happening. And you find out first, Chris, I didn't mention that, members are the first to know. So we email our members before we announce any news at the museum. So you're the first to know. I sent out that email about the board decision within moments of the decision, right, Chris? I mean, it went out immediately. I
think you give a discount at the store too, don't you?
Oh, absolutely, yes. And thank you. Another big benefit is a 10% discount at the museum store on all of the merchandise, including those catalogs I mentioned. And by the way, there's some Lancaster painted objects, decorative objects for sale that relate to the War and War exhibition by artisans from Lancaster County. So again, just putting in one final plug, Chris, please come see these exhibitions before they close. Believe me, you will be so glad you did that and that you treated yourself to that experience.
Well, thank you so much. And so now we'll move into the business portion of the annual business meeting. And with that, I'd like to introduce our president of the Penn State Retirees Association, Glenn Carter.
Thank you, Chris. We're going to make this business meeting very short, so please stick with us. We think you'll appreciate what the information we're sharing. I'll do most of the talking because to amount of time. The first thing we want to mention is that we did have an election, and for that reason, we change this to speaker view. And so we're going to be talking about the election of Cliff Merchant, the reelection of his as secretary. You can imagine this is a very, very competitive election. This is the only position we had open this year. We had 160 responses. We had 159 said yes, and one abstention. Someone didn't know Cliff. So we had a very competitive, but that's the end of the election for this year. We'll look forward to next year's changes in leadership involved. The second thing I'll mention is that we do have a treasurer's report. As of yesterday's board meeting, we were sitting with $18,278 in the general treasurer account. In addition to that, we have some $4,000 plus in the retiree assistance fund that we're currently working with, plus an endowment which we can tap. The reason why our treasurer report is fairly comfortable is it very useful that the university is underwriting in-kind support, particularly for postage and mailing, which we really appreciate. So that's one reason why we're able to keep our costs as low as we do. The third area I'll mention is membership. And we currently have 1,380 individual members in 841 households. So that's the report from there. The few comments I'll make about what's happening here. We have a fantastic board, which I've been working with. They're fun to work with. They have a lot of good time, but they're also very busy. One of the reasons why we've been able to pull off this virtual viewing is that we have a position where we have a person who is very skilled at making this stuff work, and that I probably is going to have to be red-faced a little bit, but let me say Brian Alberg, who's been managing this operation as well as getting his online for our board meetings. We are anxious to get live again. We have our fingers crossed that maybe we might pull off our September picnic. Chris has indicated that he's going to have a special menu, and we'll have a program. Perhaps we keep our fingers crossed that we can pull off a live event at the Ag Progress site if they'll allow us to have it. We haven't heard the final words yet. So with that, I'm going to say the business is pretty well finished, except for Alan Cameron, who's agreed to announce the folks who have passed away in the last 2 years. I look at that list and I find an awful lot of people who are friends or past acquaintances or known to me very well. And it's kind of sad in some ways, but also recognizing some of the fantastic people who have served this club and as officers and also been serving or participating in some of our events. So Alan, why don't you finish us off with the obituary list of names?
Thank you, Glenn. It's been 2 years since our last in-person meeting. So these are our friends who have passed away in that period of time. In 2019, Dolores Treaster, Edward Kopp, Jean Melander, Helen Haw, Jean Brenchley, Jerry Tichy, Mark Herzog, Marianne Lucas, Richard Gretzer, and Wendy Gumfrick. In 2020, Charles Widman, Betty Blazer, Ernie Bergman, a past president, Janice Voigt, John Winnett, Judd Arnold, Kathleen Wawrinovic, Leon Kneebone, a past president, Linda Deal, Lewis Gordon, Lucille Magnuson, Mary Lovett, Meredith Garrison, Rena Arnold, Bob Edwards, Sylvia Lawrence, Wava Marie Grove, and Bob Nuss. And this year, 2021, Gif Albright, another one of our past presidents, Thomas Collins, Robert Fisher, Richard Lundy, Nancy Erdley, Mel Rocky, Jim Rhodes, Gertrude Levine, Elaine Rathbon, Donald Witherite, Barry Fisher, and Annanetta Fritt. Let us take a moment of silence to remember our friends and colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. We appreciate the time. And with that, I'm going to say the meeting is closed and say goodbye. We'll see you in July and keep in touch.
Thank you. Have a good day.